listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Lowdown, where we talk about the Lowe files featuring Rob Lowe and Rob Lowe's sons, and Shaman John, and Weird Lady talking about Rob Lowe's root, and Boat. This week featuring Boat and Ocean, and not a lot of mystery. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Cogswell. I am joined by Marie Mayhew, also Sam Fredrickson, and Rob Christofferson. How's it going, guys?
Pretty sweet.
Oh, not a lot of mystery.
It's good.
Welcome to The Lowdown, Episode 2, A Boatload of Boatload. I gotta say, I think Boat is my new favorite Rob Lowe Files character.
Is the boat?
Boat Lowe?
Boat is a good character. Boat brought out the most interesting things of Rob Lowe, including vomit, which was cool.
Oh my lord, that was excessive.
Although I guess that was really ridiculous. I was like, I feel like usually when an actor vomits, that's like the thing they cut.
Yeah.
It's not like the thing that they zoom in on.
Well, but nothing
all I
else
know
happened.
is you would normally have to pay. You would have to pay pretty good money otherwise to see him vomit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right.
Is that like
Okay.
something he
Let's
just
get
does
into-
for private audiences, or?
Those are
I'd be willing
after
to put
party
down a
moments.
check for
Technically
you.
not.
Alright,
I mean, he did it
alright.
on TV.
No.
How frustrating is it that even a minute, like immediately after Rob Lowe vomits, he still looks fucking awesome?
Oh
Because
yeah.
he's Rob Lowe.
Like,
Wait,
yeah,
Rob
but like
Lowe's not
I
gonna look
vomit,
awesome?
and I come up and like my beard is covered in like pink
All right,
mystery goo,
so-
and I'm sweating and crying, and I'm like, help me! And Rob Lowe's like, oh, I threw up a little bit. It's like, you just threw up so much, dude. Frustrating.
It is sad.
So now that we got that out, let's actually tell nice people what the episode was about.
Fine, whatever. You just know where I stand. It's fine. Go ahead.
I think we have a quorum saying that none of us look good post-vomit.
No.
And the only one
No.
historically, Rob Lowe. Maybe Rob Lowe's offspring. We haven't seen them up Chuck yet, but you know, we're still kind of early days.
I would
early
say
days.
probably Ulysses S.
Early
Grant
days.
as well. I would think that he could take a vomit pretty, stay pretty cool during all that.
Grant.
Yep.
Okay, I'll give you Grant.
All
I'll
right,
give you Grant.
all right.
We're gonna have to go into some archives to find that one out. But I'll go with Grant.
Wait,
So-
Ulysses S. Grant?
Yeah, Ulysses S. Grant.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
he probably no.
Was
he,
there
no,
another
he had-
Ulysses Grant that you were thinking
No,
of?
I just wasn't sure. I was
He's
like,
got to
what?
be the most well-adjusted
he-
vomiter ever.
I was gonna say he had to keep it together though, because they're like every history of the Civil War you read, they're like, and then there was Ulysses S. Grant, who was a historical drunk, and yet managed to keep his shit together long enough to win the war, and then become a pretty good president.
There
so
you
it's
go.
amazing.
Isn't that the
There you
most
go.
any of us could want for the history books to remember
really,
us as?
really? That's all I want. I want a statue that was like he didn't poop his pants. while giving
That's
his
all I
speech.
want for a president.
That's all I
That's
want.
fair. Oh, good.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody. You've been great. Anyway,
That's been okay.
So,
all right.
alien underwater base.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I keep wanting
Yeah.
to put alien in there because it's more interesting. So, as Rob Lowe tells us at the beginning of the episode, off the coast of Malibu, not so deep into the water, is a flat surface that could be or could not be a alien base, and he's found it, even though it's secret, on Google.
Actually, I have to say it is pretty deep down. It's like almost half a mile. Yeah, it's 2,000 feet down, at least.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And he heard lore of this in his youth in Malibu, and strange lights flickering over the ocean and so forth along those lines. So him and the boys, him and John Owen and the other one, Matthew, go and decide to check it out. But after they go out to eat and talk about the car for a little bit.
Of course.
Well, actually, so I thought the way it had happened rather was that he grew up right near this area, and he had heard about like aliens and whatever, and like the water being strange or all that kind of good stuff, and then on Google Earth there was an image of like a. Because, Google Earth is, like, the best, highest quality images of everything, especially deep under the water.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Like I guess Google had done like a survey of the ocean as well, because I guess when you have Google money, when you have Google money, who gives a shit what you waste it on? And so they like added it to Google Earth for some reason, and so people were like looking on Google Earth and they saw this. I mean, everyone knows what the bottom of the ocean looks like normally,
Right.
And so we all had a really good idea when we saw it on Google Earth, and we were like, well, that doesn't look normal for us, who have all been to the bottom of the ocean and definitely know what it should look like.
Oh, yeah, man.
Especially
Oh, yeah.
Rob Lowe.
Am I getting my point across?
Every
We
week.
don't know what the bottom of the ocean looks like. This could be completely normal. We have no idea.
Right.
Anyways.
That's part of the mystery.
So-
That's part of the terror of the ocean.
Is it part of the mystery? Is
It is. It is.
I'm not so sure.
The fact that
It's-
we don't know. The fact that we don't know is the mystery.
Yes.
This is-
No, absolutely no. The ocean is mysterious and terrifying. I'm with you on that, for sure.
It's very archetypal of like the hero's journey, and there's like the call to action, and the call to action is investigating spooky stuff, and I gotta say, he investigates it. At the very least, he investigates it.
And he's
he does
bringing his
investigate.
kids along with him, and again, they're This one's hard to rally around. Again, like I do love it when I felt like they were getting into a groove. They announced what they were doing. They gave the premise, and then they go out to eat. And as Chris has pointed out, and then Rob Lowe doesn't bring his wallet.
But he has a good reason for not bringing.
Yeah,
he's
but,
not
like-
just a cheapskate.
Yeah.
No. I think
Does he?
think that is a reason. He's just coming up with a reason on the fly why he's being a cheapskate at the current moment.
I was gonna say, I could tell you guys, like, whatever, like, oh, no, as an engineer, whenever I go to a plant, they make us take everything out of our pockets, and so I never bring my wallet with me, and I'm just so, like, handsome and adorable that you'll believe me. But Rob Lowe, I mean, okay, it's his kids anyways, like, whatever, like, my mom, I pay for my mom whenever she comes out here, like, whatever.
Yeah.
That part to me doesn't really, like, the problem I have with this damn episode is that nothing happens.
No.
Oh yeah.
It's like I watched it on demand, and without commercials, this episode is like 13 minutes long.
Yeah.
20 minutes. Every
It's
single one of them is.
ridiculous.
That's kind of the letdown of these. Like, the episodes we're going to be recapping is like, you were given an hour initially, and then, bam, we dropped down to half an hour of programming.
And like
Snatched
a pretty
it.
good hour
Yeah,
too.
it was a good
Yeah.
hour.
A pretty good hour.
Yeah.
I think
Pretty
that's
good
I think
hour.
that's one point that we I think that's one point actually, Marie, when we had talked about this kind of whatever off the air, I guess. You had brought up to us all that I think it was your mom, right? Or was it Sam's? No, it was Sam's mom.
Yeah.
Sam's mom said she was like let down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like she felt like she had gotten into this thinking it would be something something different than what the show ended up being.
Yeah, it's like,
Right?
and really, when she first said that, her exact words were, well, I'm not going to use her exact words. Her modified words were, "I feel ripped off because this is just about Rob Lowe and his sons taking a vacation, and they conned us
Yeah.
all into believing it was going to be some big." But then I sat, and at first I was like, "Oh, Mom, you're being silly." But then I sat and I said, "Okay, not only do you have a good point, but we also have to accept that at no point during the promotion, during the show itself, did they ever say this was going to be anything more than Rob Lowe and his
No!
sons just going
No.
out and
No,
doing
it's called
stuff.
it's not called like Paranormal Report with Rob Lowe or like Rob Lowe Bigfoot Hunter. It's called the Lowe Files.
Exactly.
And it's like him. It's like even in the intro, they're like, "I love looking at weird stuff with my sons, and so we're gonna go on a road trip and look for this stuff."
And when you
And it's like,
when you look
Yeah.
at it under that lens, under that microscope, because I went back and I watched the other two episodes we're going to recap this time. I watched it under that scope, and I was like, you know what? Lowering my expectations brought me so much more joy and so much more just like enjoyment of the entire process. So, listeners, take those expectations, just cut them down at the root, bring them down, yell timber, and let's go forward. Okay? All right.
see,
So,
I
but-
would.
but
Yeah,
the-
go ahead, Marie.
So, and this was my concern at the first pass, that this was going to be sort of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like no, you don't get to just have the family vacation televised and paid for by A&E. I mean, you have a certain promise or obligation with your audience that you have made, right? It's Chekhov's gun, right? If you introduce Bigfoot in all of your promo, at some point you're going to have to deliver on Bigfoot. Doesn't have to be in the first couple of episodes, but you have to deliver on something more than like, and then we had s'mores, and it was great. That you have to have something. You have to pay off a little bit more if that's the premise that you've decided to linchpin this whole thing on. So, and it's not that I don't love Rob Lowe and his boys, because I do. They're adorable. I'm sure that they'll be paying for meals for him for years to come, which is fine. But it's still like, especially this one, I'm like, okay, so, and they brought on another expert as well. So I was like, oh, maybe, the woman from MUFON, when they're actually on the boat. Well, let's talk about quickly how they got on the boat, what the boat was.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the boat was the boat that James Cameron used for Titanic and then for something else. James Cameron just seems to spend a lot of time underwater for some reason. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is the boat that he does it on. And I guess Rob Lowe called him one weekend and was like, hey, I got A&E money. I'm, like, stupid rich right now for travel stuff. Can I use your weird boat? And James Cameron was like, yeah, it doesn't do anything else. Come use my boat.
He's
and
like,
that was
hey,
it.
Jimmy.
That's what happened.
Hey, Jimmy, me and the boys want to take the boat out. Is that cool with you? And he was like, Rob, of course, have you been? We'll catch up.
Wow, that's how we're saying this is happening. Yeah, it's kind of weird because, so, this boat, it's interesting. They get on this boat, and the boat is equipped with a remote operating vehicle, or ROV, which is I think ROV stands for remote operating vehicle, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it does.
I didn't check that,
allow
but
it.
Pretty sure. Okay, cool. So we got our fact checkers here. We're good. So the ROV, so it's these people that like work on this boat and know what they're doing. Rob Lowe, his two sons, and then a random woman from MUFON who has one line where she says, "I've heard that there are UFOs in this water." And like that's it. That's all she says. And then I think she says too when they see they're looking at the thing and she's like, wow, this is weird looking or something like that, and it's whatever. So the whole thing is they go down to see this formation, whatever it is that they're not sure, and because they're on an ROV, this thing is like 3 miles wide. It's super deep. Like it's really, these aren't the best conditions even if you had all the time in the world to do like a full scientific survey of the area. And so it's even worse when you're like literally using a robot with a camcorder basically on it and a little flashlight. And the captain even explains, or I don't know if he's the captain or if he's like the guy that does the ROV, kind of whatever. It wasn't really clear what he was.
He's the intern.
Let the intern drive today.
Yeah.
Whoever he was like, well, we're looking at a feature that is like 6 meters wide, and our camera can see maybe 30 centimeters or something. Like, it's not super. They're not getting a wide enough range of vision with the depth and then with the light itself that they can really get a sense of what this thing is. So basically, they just kind of like wasted a lot of money on a cool time for Rob Lowe and his kids, which, yeah, like if you're looking at it from Sam's perspective, the new perspective, I guess, where it's all about Rob Lowe and his kids, that's cool. Except they showed a lot, like, the thing is, so for me, this show doesn't show itself as a normal reality show. If it was like, Keeping Up with the Lows, but they're like looking for Bigfoot too, that'd be one thing. But every episode they kind of frame it as we're doing this investigation and it's going to be not serious necessarily, but at least we're going to try.
Right.
But these episodes, these episodes, it's like, we're going to look for an alien base that's underwater, so we're just going to go into the ocean and look at this weird thing. And it's like, the ocean is ginormous. You know what I mean? It reminds me of that scene in Invader Zim when the aliens tell Zim that they want to meet him in the forest. and he's like vague but okay. Like that's what this reminds me of. Like they're like, oh, we're gonna go hunt for Bigfoot. Where? You know, woods.
Around.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're just gonna go find some woods that Bigfoot supposedly
But
was
they
seen
did
in.
find.
And, like, look.
But they did find some perfectly symmetrical circles. What? What were they? Oh my God!
They were-
Oh,
they
that's true.
coordinates?
That's
Were they dials?
No.
they
They were
were.
clamshells.
No, not exactly.
No.
Not exactly.
No. They were.
Detritus. Just see detritus.
And,
You know-
and they were not alien earrings, according to Rob Lowe.
Right.
No, they weren't alien earrings.
I will
yeah,
say-
it's
I
actually
got
this-
the alien earrings. Yeah.
I will say I did learn something from this show, or from this episode. I learned that sand dollars, and maybe everybody else in the whole wide world knows this, I learned that sand dollars were once alive, and they are essentially the skeletons of their former self. And that made me really reevaluate all my childhood memories of my parents bringing me home sand dollars from the Oregon coast. And it kind of messed with me.
Oh,
I've been
nice.
dealing with that for a few
Oh,
weeks
nice.
now.
Nice. So the Lowe's owe you some retro,
Some
some cash
sweet-
for some therapy.
Sweet,
That's what I'm hearing.
sweet pain and suffering money, yes.
Interesting.
What I
So-
especially loved about Sam's take was he's like, so you guys, I think we can say. So I've learned something today. I've learned something here today, and I was like, oh sweet. It's like the moral sum up, which is
Yeah. You take away a little something.
If you know James Cameron, you can waste a whole shitload of time and money.
Just on a boat. So, Rob, I think Rob has the best sum up of this episode, which is what is that thing actually down there?
Okay, so like this whole thing is dubious to begin with. Okay, because this goes back to 2014. All right, so Jimmy Church, he hosts this show called Fade to Black, and I think he sometimes does stints on Coast to Coast. But a listener named Maxwell, in May of 2014, brought him this Google Earth image. And I think it was the one where you can see like the pillars from the side and all that stuff, the supposed
Right.
pillars. And he got a graphic designer to take a whole bunch of pictures of that supposed anomaly. And he was putting it out there that it could be a supposed underwater alien base. So about a month later, Lee Spiegel, who is a writer for the Huffington Post, he writes in their weird news section in an article titled "The Truth Behind the Malibu Underwater Alien Base." So he talks to Jimmy Church and gets his take on it. Jimmy Church says that thing looks Greek. Okay, sure, but
So stupid.
but
I'm down. I'm there. I'm back on. on.
but Lee Spiegel, he talks to a guy with the U.S. Geological Survey named David Schwartz. Schwartz looks at it and says it's not unusual looking. What he says is that it is a thrust fault, which means that one side of the crust moves up over the other, is basically what he said. And this area is called Sycamore Knoll. And let me find it here, but it was actually mapped out by the Geological Society of America in 2009. And if you look on the map, it shows the perfect oval shape. So, he keeps going on. He keeps talking to people, okay? And he talks to Ben Hansen, okay? And Ben Hansen, for those that don't know, he was a former FBI agent, and he is the former host of Sci-Fi Channel's Fact or Faked, which was a great show where a bunch of people got together and looked at certain images or videos and tried to debunk them. And he took a picture. He got on Google Earth. He got this area at a certain angle, and the supposed pillars are actually what they look like are deep cuts in the ridges, in the ridge right there, because it drops off right at the edge. So the supposed pillars are just ridges. That's all they are.
And here's the thing that annoys the crap out of me is, even if you look at the original Google Earth image, you can see other ridges on other parts of the ocean floor right there.
It's right next to it.
you can see the ridges. Like, it's not like this is a perfect Roman column with cuts into it and stuff, and there's like a sphinx down there, and people are like, well, I don't know, the Earth can throw up some weird things. This is like clearly a giant piece of rock ridge that just is darker in some, like, deeper in some spots than others, that people are taking out of context. Like, it's so dumb, and it's frustrating that this episode, like, that to me means if they had spent 5 minutes Googling what this base was, they could have had their answer right away.
Yeah.
That's like frustrating, and
But then what would
Kristoff,
have James Cameron's boat done?
I know, but Kristoff's yesterday we did the Dark Myths. We did like a Dark Myths podcast interview together. So he interviewed me, and he actually asked me what was one of my least favorite things about the paranormal community, and I said taking every theory on its face as being as valid as any other theory. Right? Like, not taking into account other possible explanations. So for me, if something extraordinary is being claimed as an explanation for something, we should go through all of the possible rational explanations first, right? And then when there's no other rational explanation, you got something weird. That's when we get the Skinwalker Ranches and the Betty and Barney Hill cases. You know what I mean? Like, that's when we get really weird shit that's good and long-lasting, not stupid Google Earth images that are easily debunked right away. And so the fact that, like why would that MUFON lady agree to come on this ship at all if she had spent more than 10 minutes Googling this base beforehand?
Right.
And the reason is that they don't check. There's no quality control.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Well, and with MUFON, what I've noticed in some of my... MUFON is split in to, in my opinion, 2 very separate camps. And the first are just, like, good people. I don't know which camp this lady fell in. I'm just going to say. But...
Yeah, absolutely. No. Yeah, we have no idea.
Well,
this lady might
here's
be
the thing.
the smartest person.
Right.
Her name is Chase Klotsky, okay? And from what I understand about her, she is the leader of a certain team within MUFON. She recently, like, as of Friday or Saturday, she went on Coast to Coast AM to talk about the underwater alien base. I didn't listen to it, but she was talking about it. So if that is any indication, and like, here's the thing. I understand why people think that there's an underwater alien base off of California. There are a lot of, like, especially around Catalina Island, there are a lot of USO sightings and stuff like that, but it's just, you can't throw in and say, oh, this random anomaly that we can see on Google Earth images, that's got to be an underwater base.
Yeah, it's not this rock.
Right.
Yeah.
That the Geological Survey went down and took notes on and mapped out.
Yeah.
And I mean, like,
it's not that rock.
And it's a major, according to the guy from the Geological Survey, it is a major fault area. So,
I mean, it just seems so, yeah. And that's the thing. So we actually, it's kind of funny. Marie and I are working, or we have this story in our back pocket that happened in my backyard in Claremont, New Hampshire, when I was living at Katie's grandma's place. And it happened many years ago, but it's like a local legend. It's very famous in that area. And the folks from MUFON who I've contacted about the case are like, don't talk about this case because it makes us look bad. Right? They think that the case is like, because it's this guy and his wife who claim to have psychic communication with ghosts for like 20 years, right? And so, like, that's fine. Like, they could not want us to talk about it. But then you have people peddling this crap about this underwater base. Like, that's... I think the fact that this woman and her husband both thought that they were in contact with aliens is far more interesting than someone misinterpreting Google Earth. And then it getting blown out of proportion.
100%.
And we're going to tell that story. We're going to tell that story, fans. You just wait.
No,
we're going to tell the Claremont UFO case.
I actually was reading the book this weekend.
It's such a crazy book!
Now, see, I got to get my hands on this.
Oh, dude, there's not that many. He, like, self-published it in Claremont.
I have author's corrections in mine and his own.
Yeah, he, like, hand-corrected the book because some of the stuff got printed wrong. It's really amazing.
Wow.
The story, I honestly think the story is going to be really fun. I actually consider it to be part of the Mothman events because it's very similar to what Woody Derenberger described.
Ooh.
And it happened at the same time. And there was even a component of the story, which is the aliens were warning this family that, hey, this power plant down the river from you is going to explode.
Yeah, that's
like that.
Very similar.
All of these aspects are the same. Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think it's something to talk about for sure. So you just wait, people. We're breaking open this UFO case.
And I think we should put it under the title of Stories from Katie's Nanas.
Yeah.
Campfire
That's
stories
beautiful.
from Katie's
Campfire
Nana's place.
stories from Katie's Nana. I think that would be actually pretty funny. All right.
Yeah,
And
it's actually pretty amazing. So hopefully we'll be doing that one. Actually, Rob and Sam, if you guys want to jump in on that with us, you guys are more than welcome.
Oh, hell yeah.
100%, man. I'm on
There
board.
It's going to be pretty amazing.
There
It's
is
going to be
enough
pretty amazing.
self-published crazy to go around.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this story,
Some good
we
stuff.
were thinking of doing like a long-term kind of episode thing, but then I think probably like 1 or 2 is probably going to be the most we can fill out while we're also doing the true crime thing. We'll have to see. Anyways,
We'll make it work.
so episode 3 of the Lowe Files is Bigfoot.
Just Bigfoot.
And just Bigfoot. And again, it's kind of similar to the last one. They go to a forest. And I don't mean a forest with a deep, sultry baritone. I mean a forest full of trees. And they kind of go to the wrong place, right?
Well, first,
Like,
back up because there's a new character
Yeah.
that they bring into this.
Oh,
this whole
God.
thing.
God.
And it's
Okay,
no,
well,
wait,
let's-
stop,
yeah.
stop.
How
It's a
far,
new character.
we
It's
gotta-
the
how
truck.
far back do we want to go? Oh, the truck.
No, I mean, like,
the
that
truck.
truck's... Is the truck
the
a character now?
Oh,
Yeah.
truck. No, I'm,
No,
I'm
I'm
Team
sorry.
Boat. I'm Team
truck
Boat.
is
As
a
much as
character.
they
Boat.
talk about that truck and show that truck and the features of that truck's a Lowe.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I could agree
Truck
with
Lowe.
that.
Truck Lowe.
All right.
How good do you
all
think
right.
it is
still
on gas?
prefer-
I mean, you know,
I think
is that
that's
economic?
probably terrible. Looking at that
Yeah,
thing.
it's probably pretty bad.
I
Yeah.
think he's like the second favorite son, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, probably.
100%.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so this episode, they basically start by saying, you know, we've always loved the hunt for Bigfoot, and Rob Lowe says Sasquatch kind of funnily says
Sasquatch. Yeah.
The
Which is
soft
interesting.
What
one.
is that?
Sasquatch.
Then, yeah, Sasquatch, like with his
Sasquatch.
pinky out, and then, so then they go to the place that they say the Patterson Gimlin film was shot, but it's actually, I believe it's actually the place that people say it was shot, but it's actually the wrong place.
Yeah, they said Willow
was-
Creek, but they shot it at Bluff Creek.
Yeah, so I don't know,
If
like,
only
why
they had an
changed the
expert on
name.
Bigfoot.
Well, Also, too,
Google.
where they were, because they're on the Hooper Reservation, Bluff Creek is like 12 miles north from
Yeah,
there.
so
they're not
it
far
makes
off.
I mean, it's definitely in the right vicinity, and it is a very active Bigfoot zone from all accounts.
heavy squatch activity.
It is heavy Squatch activity. So they get kind of set up, whatever. They're gonna go camping, I guess, but they end up not really camping. They just kind of drive out there, and they drive out there, and they're with Matt Moneymaker, probably one of my top 3 least favorite paranormal people.
Matt
I would
Moneymaker.
say
Oh, Lord.
it's like yeah, it would have to be like,
Rob is upset.
I don't know. It's like tied. Probably at the top it would be Alex Jones. Would be my least favorite.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't even
Then
consider
prob-
him. Yeah, he's just.
Yeah, I mean,
fringe.
I guess within the realm of like conspiracy and not, you know, like conspiracy and like not. I don't even know what I'm trying to say with that.
Just-
Whatever conspiracies,
Just
right?
the number one asshole.
And-
is how
Yeah.
I would run it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much just the number one asshole. But it would be him, and then it would be Linda Moulton Howe,
Yes.
and probably Moneymaker, maybe a couple other people.
Sorry.
But the problem with Moneymaker, I think, is that he seems very. I just think his show is really damaging.
Yeah.
Like, I think his show makes the search for Bigfoot seem stupid and like random
Yeah.
and not like there are real, like, Jeff Meldrum is so legit.
Yeah.
And like so serious about looking for this thing that he believes,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me angry when like they just go out into the they're like behind a Walmart in Ohio and they're like, you know, it's squatchy as hell back here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when they heard the calls coming back to them, I was like, "Where's Bobo?"
Yeah,
I
right.
was like, "Is that Bobo in the trees? Is that Bobo helping out Moneymaker right now?"
The
Right.
thing I don't
Like-
understand, and maybe I need to bone up on my lore a little bit with the Squatches, but like you're just randomly screaming shit in the forest. It's gonna have diminishing returns.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
I think if there's anything out there, one, it's like, what the fuck is that? Is that Moneymaker out here again screaming? What the fuck? Doesn't he have a family to go home to? Can somebody
Yeah.
come up with a legitimate hobby for this bozo? And if there is a Sasquatch, again, like they're just like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and it's
I mean,
all about
I-
the screaming. And I was watching this and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, okay.
Oh,
The
man.
thing too is like when scientists go out to look for great apes, like I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. They're like nature shows where they go to find like a great ape, you know, I don't know, troop, I guess, a group.
Yeah, like the
Whatever, I don't really know what they call it.
like a silverback.
Like
They're going in to find
Yeah, exactly,
a group of-
exactly, yeah, like a gorilla enclave.
Mm-hmm.
They hike for like 5 days to the dark, like to the deepest, hardest to reach part of the jungle, and they find them by being very, very quiet. They're super hard to track. They're very intelligent, and they don't want to get eaten by other predators.
Right.
So like, they're like, I don't think Bigfoot's gonna hear a call. He's gonna be like, "Oh, is that Jerry? What up, Jerry?"
My boy.
Like that's not gonna happen. Yeah, I don't understand why the call started. The knocking, the wood knocking thing, I can understand to a point because, like, that's a if you howl in the night, there's a chance that it'll be coyotes or it'll be cows or it'll be another human or something, right? But I feel like tree knocking is one of those indicative qualities of non-human primates that can't be or wouldn't naturally be faked. Although now that everyone watches these Bigfoot shows,
Right.
now everyone knows to do it. So I guarantee you're getting false positives and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, so they end up going to the woods and they just kind of screw around in the woods for a little bit, and they have a FLIR camera, which I guess is nice. But again, like, it doesn't feel like they are setting themselves up for success,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
they're just going to the woods kind of near where there have been sightings. It does not feel like a serious investigation. And maybe that's not the point, like you were saying, Sam.
Yeah, man.
But that first episode was
It-
relatively serious and
Yeah.
good, and like it was
Yeah.
funny, but it seemed like they at least put themselves into a haunted house.
Right.
And I guess in this case they at least put them onto a piece of forested land that has a lot of sightings. But I'm not sure going out there with a really loud truck and making noises in a giant
No.
fire and
Yeah,
stuff is
well,
the best way to do it.
They pull
The-
out a megaphone. Like,
Yeah,
how
which is
you're
really
scaring
stupid.
away the Squatch, guys. Come on.
My
Yeah.
biggest issue, aside from Matt Moneymaker himself, they talk to the Hoopa people themselves, people who have had experiences with this stuff. Why would you not go to them and ask them to take you out and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
possibly, because they're going to have a better chance than Matt Moneymaker is, simply because these people have a tradition of Sasquatch in their lore. Why would you not take them up on that?
Because they don't have a show on a sister network.
I mean, yeah, that's probably
is
There's
why.
no
true.
cross-functional
yeah.
At the
tie-in.
end
Like,
of the day.
that was my beef with this entire thing. Is I'm like, this is becoming a product placement. Okay, if you wanted to have it be about you and the kids, and this is sort of your vacation, Sam, to your point, seeing it through that lens, then I'm on board. I'm like, all right, you're going to go scare off a bunch of deer and some coyotes, and you're going to scream in the forest, fire up. But if you're going to make me sit through a 20-minute infomercial on the truck, which I honestly do feel like that's where it was going with this. I'm like, that's not cool. Rob, Rob,
Rob.
that's not cool.
What are you thinking, Rob Lowe?
What are you
damn.
thinking,
Yeah.
Rob Lowe? You had me. You were all genuine and all like teary-eyed in the first episode, and this time you're just kind of, literally four-wheeling. So it's that's where I was starting to be like, all right.
I also feel like in shows like this, in Finding Bigfoot and stuff like that, there is one thing that they fundamentally fail to even acknowledge, and it's that you cannot hunt a Bigfoot. You just cannot do it. Anybody who has ever come across a Bigfoot has come across it from one of two ways. They have either caught it off guard, or they have encroached upon its territory. That is it. You cannot hunt for it. You can't
So
hunt
they
for a
haven't just
creature that
knocked
is
on stuff?
intelligent enough to hide from you.
It's the most dangerous game.
It is the most dangerous game with Bigfoot. But no.
Most
no.
dangerous game, Bigfoot edition.
Yeah.
I like it.
I wish
and
that
I'll-
book had existed when I was in school. That would have been amazing. Instead, I
No,
just got the most dangerous game itself, and yeah, it was pretty good, but Bigfoot, totally better.
Not
Bigfoot
as-
would make,
not as
Bigfoot
good
make
as
it better.
Bigfoot.
What one actually lens of this show that I think is really interesting is looking at it as an unplanned satire on the entire paranormal reality
Right.
genre.
Mhm.
Right.
Like, it's hilarious to me that when Rob Lowe and his kids were planning this vacation, they were like, oh, we're going to have cameras watching us.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need when you hunt for Bigfoot? A FLIR camera for some fucking reason.
Mhm.
Right, and those
You know what I mean? Like,
those ain't cheap.
no, they're extremely expensive, and, like, they're really cool. I'm just not certain that it's going to be that helpful when you're in a warm forest.
No.
At night, look at, you know what I mean? Like, they're useful to a point if you have experience. Like with any investigative tool, it is useful if you know how to use it. If you are a shitty violin player and we give you an amazing antique violin from the Renaissance, you're still gonna play it like crap, regardless of how good the instrument is. You know, and to me, I actually find it kind of refreshing that the like bare assness of a lot of these shows is on full display, because really the only difference between the Lowe Files and Ancient Aliens is the Lowe Files has less talking heads blathering bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Whoa,
at
man,
least
that's-
Rob Lowe and his kids are out there like, this is fun, we're having a good time, we're not gonna find anything, but you never know. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
Right,
they go out to eat.
Yeah.
They go out to eat a lot on this show.
and
nice.
like
The-
and like on
Everybody's gotta
Ancient Aliens, we wouldn't get the story about how Rob Lowe dressed up as a Bigfoot on a family vacation once and got
No.
kicked in the
That's
balls.
No, we
That's
would
true.
never have gotten that
We
story.
wouldn't know
Yeah.
that. And
You college
we
student.
certainly wouldn't have seen him thrown up.
No.
Well, and the
No?
thing-
No.
And the thing is though too, like, it makes you value those good shows on the paranormal so much more. Like watching the Lowe Files, the whole time I was like, you know, if freaking Josh Gates got access to James Cameron's boat, he would have found something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
or like, it's, or like you said, like Ben Hansen from Fact or Faked, like that show was awesome.
No, it was great. I
That was
love
a
that show.
really great show.
Because I mean, there
you know?
were some things that they could not replicate. It wasn't
yeah,
that.
which was
It wasn't that
Exactly.
totally they, everything. No, it's fake. They're like, no, we could not replicate this.
right. It was like it was by throwing away all the crud, all the terrible cases. When they finally got a hit where they were like, we can't do this. Like, we don't know how to fake this using all of our camera, all of our digital manipulation at our disposal, whatever. That then becomes a much more compelling piece of evidence.
It builds
You know?
credibility. Yeah.
But
Exactly.
you guys, I mean, come on. It's Rob Lowe, for Christ's sake.
I know. I love this show still. I'm
Come
not
on,
saying
man.
I
No,
love this
But
show.
I-
I'm also
yeah.
saying that he's not any of these other people that have any kind of,
No.
background in paranormal investigation or scientific theory. He's an actor.
He
What the
is
fuck
an actor.
He's an actor, and he's wandering around out in the woods with his kids. Like,
He's an
I-
actor who's
A part-
hanging
Yeah,
out with Matt Moneymaker, who can't tell if it's
Who's
a
an actor
cow
as
that
well.
he's hearing in the woods, and
be a
he
cow.
wants to talk about Bigfoot's eyes as he uses the term folklorish.
Folkloric.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Go
The-
to Stop.
When they talked
Stop.
about, oh my goodness, yeah. So Moneymaker kind of came out and was like, kind of started edging into the idea that Bigfoot is actually, so the way I had heard that wasn't that it was eye shine, which is a very, well, anyone that's ever been in the woods or has a cat knows that at nighttime their eyes, because they're so reflective, and animals' eyes will reflect light back at you and may look like they're glowing in the night. That
because of supernatural occurrences.
Right. Well, what I thought he was edging towards was actually the idea that Bigfoot is a spiritual thing. It's not an animal.
Well, I will say
that's where I thought he was going.
Yeah, but he almost made it seem like Bigfoot is the devil.
Right.
He did. Well, he said it makes you feel like you're looking at the devil or something. And like Rob Lowe's face was like, "What?"
And like
it was like, "No, come on."
And that's the thing too, is like there are multiple ways to look at this. Oh, hey, there's it's this mythical creature, this mythical monster. But that's not the way that the Hoopa people look at it. They look at it as if these people have been here a lot longer than we have. They've been hanging out. They know the forest better than any of us. And like we were talking at one point, like David Politis, the missing 411 guy, before this, he went to the Hoopa people, and he interviewed a lot of them. He got a forensic artist to sketch what these people said these Bigfoot look like. And the chilling thing about it is like if you remove hair from the face, they look strikingly human. So.
Sure.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say they look strikingly like Rob Lowe, and then I was actually going to lose my shit. But
you never know.
But there's the difference. There's the difference, though, you guys. Is like he clearly has a more serious, earnest intent behind doing this than the people, and I would say the producers of this show. I mean, there's nothing that's adding into them finding anything, because that would require some earnest effort on their part, and that's not going to happen.
Right.
So what do you guys think? So,
I did look it up. As far as I can tell, primates do not have a natural eye shine. They may have something similar to like red eye with humans in photographs, which would make sense, I guess, after taking a photo. But
and they've got a filter now that can take care of that. So it's they lack
a certain part of the eye that produces eye shine. At least all known apes and great apes. Now Sasquatch
that would make
totally
sense because that would make sense though, because primates are not nocturnal, right? I mean, that would make sense. Then they would not have eye shine.
Exactly.
So where do you guys? So where do you guys fall on Bigfoot? Because this is one of those questions that people always ask me. I actually think, like what you were saying, Rob, about going to the Hoopa people and talking to them. I actually think that that's probably the best way to get any info on this thing if it does exist. Because, like we were saying earlier, you don't hunt for Bigfoot. You accidentally stumble onto Bigfoot, or he is, like, looking at you, or he or she is looking at you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I feel like gathering the data that does exist is probably more useful than... I mean, while we should have people going out and looking, I think it's probably more useful to collect the data from good, verifiable sources, these people who have been out hunting their entire lives. That's why when Survivor Man, when Les Stroud did his series looking for Bigfoot, and he said, like, I had an experience, like, holy shit, that's Les Stroud saying he saw Bigfoot. You know what I mean?
Right.
That, to me, is a big deal. Because this is someone that goes out in the woods and, like, might get mistaken for Bigfoot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I personally believe that I'm like 50-50. I think there's so much good evidence and smart people out there saying that they've seen this thing that it makes me hesitate to say that it's a complete hoax. Do I think there's a lot of hoaxing going on? I absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
But so I feel like there are three kind of prevailing theories out there. There's the Bigfoot is a relic or an animal from a lost time or something. It's an undiscovered great ape. There's the idea that Bigfoot is a spiritual kind of guardian of the forest, almost kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that then leads into the whole grand unified theory. And then another one that I had seen that I actually thought was... I keep seeing different versions of this that I find very, very interesting is the reports of Bigfoot are actually some kind of... It's just a human, but they're either because they're part of a group that lives in the woods and doesn't want to have technology, or they are... I saw one case where it was people were saying maybe this is part of the ritual to become a medicine man in certain like very closed off tribal societies or stuff. Like I actually find those arguments to be quite compelling as well. Where do you guys all stand? What do you think?
I think I think they've been around personally a lot longer than we have. I think they were here before us. It's just because like these creatures, whatever they are, whether they're more human-like, more animal-like, they are built for the environment that they're in. They're rugged. They are huge. They are able to move quickly over rough terrain. They are clearly built for the landscape, which makes me think that they've been here a little bit longer than we have.
Sure. Sam, what do you think? Fascinating.
Oh no.
No!
Marie?
Oh no, Sam.
Hello? I am
Hello!
here.
Sam!
Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
I was taking out
It's
my
okay.
fancy Apple AirPods and putting in my normal things, and guess what? It messed up everything. It didn't mess up anything. I was just gone for the last
Okay.
30
He was
seconds.
just-
Okay, you're good.
We're
You're
good.
good.
So
Okay,
what was
so-
Rob saying? That's the last thing I heard was what.
Okay, so
Rob
Rob
was
was basically saying that he believes Bigfoot's been around before we have. They've probably, I guess, evolved here. So
Okay.
Rob, you fall on the idea of them being, well, you fall on the side then of it being somehow natural.
Yes.
Okay.
I would argue, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I would say I'm part of that camp as well, for sure.
Okay.
Sam, what do you think?
So good question, great question. I
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. I
Wow.
am sold out 100% Bigfoot believer, no matter what, till the day I die. There's absolutely no question to me that Bigfoot or Sasquatch, whatever, exists. I have been grappling more recently. I've actually, for the last 3-4 years or so, as a kid, I was like, oh, it's an animal, 100%. For the last 3 or 4 years, I have been grappling with the thought of it being either a spiritual or a multi-dimensional being sort of thing. We talked about it a lot on our show. We did an episode on the Ape Canyon encounter, wherein one of the gentlemen involved with this Bigfoot attack on people published a book 50 years, 40 years afterwards saying, like, these are interdimensional beings, they're messengers, essentially. And I've been thinking about that a lot and kind of grooving with that. But more recently, what I have kind of decided on for myself is pretty similar. I found in the research for that episode some local lore, some local legends of Pacific Northwest Native American tribes regarding Sasquatch that talked about him a lot more of being essentially they're another tribe. It's called the Siatic tribe of people that are, for one reason or another, originally they were kind of banished from proper civilization, and they when all of humankind was evolving essentially from animal to man, the Siatic, like, their consciousness was there. They had the consciousness of a man, but their bodies didn't make the change, creating this kind of man animal and this entirely different tribe altogether. And that's really kind of what I've been grooving on for the last few months.
Almost the leftover Neanderthal hypothesis.
Yeah, but then you have these other stories though from I can't remember any of the tribes, but there are multiple tribes with these stories of the Seatic talking about how because of their isolation and because of their weird spiritual development, they have like powers of essentially what would be astral projection. They have powers of psychic thought, invisibility, that sort of stuff, that are presented as just part of the natural world that these beings are able to harness. So I would say that they're physical beings that are able, I probably sound just like Quani Lapsaritas right now, but they're physical beings that are able to harness or tap into that underlying other dimensional sort of thing going around us all the time. That's my Bigfoot theory. You can use it if you like it. If you like it, it's your theory now. That's fine.
So
that's fine.
I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
Up to the point where Bigfoot stopped being a member of a isolated tribe that has decided they aren't living the modern way.
Right.
To me, Bigfoot is like... To me, these sightings of Bigfoot, potentially, I can't say this for certain,
okay,
are I find very romantic and kind of nice, not nice, I guess, like, I am very compelled by the thought of Bigfoot sightings actually being sightings of a human population who have decided, like the Amish, but a little bit less conspicuously, to remove themselves from modern humanity. Whether or not this is like a Native American tribe or something that said, you know what, we're doing our own thing, we don't want any part of this modern world, and somehow they've managed to stick to that. You know what I mean? It's a couple of families or something. I
totally
find that extremely compelling, but I think it's probably not likely either, because, like, there would be some converts, you know, the first time they see someone walking around, like, you know, with an iPad or something, they'd be like, what the hell is that?
I'm on board.
You know what I mean?
I'm on board. Take me there.
I mean, but yeah, I don't know about the spiritual stuff, but you know, I like your theory.
Thank you. Just to clarify really quick, what happened is, I've got my notes from that episode back up now. There was a time of changing from animal to human. The Seatic people did not absorb what is known as the Tamanawais, which is the soul power that separates humankind from all other beasts of the land. So, yes, there you go. Clarification. Thank you for your rebuttal, and I will take your comments under consideration. Thank you. Yes, very good.
Nice.
Very good. All right.
Cool. Marie, what do you think, Marie?
Well, if we bring up my PowerPoint presentation from last fall, gentlemen, called Sasquatch, who are they? No. So my husband, Paul, feels he has a theory that the aliens are people from the future. So it's basically
Fair.
us in the future coming back.
I'm with Paul. I'm with Paul
okay.
100%.
Hold up. So for Bigfoot, I almost look at it in the same genre. They're maybe they're not exactly from the future, but they're from some. If they're out there, they're running from some parallel time, some other parallel time constraint that somehow has splintered from aliens, right? Because it's sort of like they're not. We've had this discussion before, Chris, and I can't believe I'm honestly saying this because it just something I would never think of myself to say, but like we've had this discussion about Bigfoot before, in that biologically you cannot say that that's the biological inevitability of people, right? You can't say that that's our next evolutionary, or they are on track or off track from any kind of evolution from where we are now. But I think you can say that there's enough there that they are in some way, how they are described, they are in some way related to us in just their form and function. So I would step back and say, well, if aliens are people from our future coming back or trying to do something and have some sort of influence in their past, Bigfoot and their ilk are some sort of splinter from that in a different parallel dimension.
Interesting.
Boom.
So
Boom,
us four don't agree about Bigfoot at all.
Not at all. No.
No.
Is he hairy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. All right.
Actually, there was a book that I read. I got it as a birthday
Why does he have to be
present.
hairy? Sorry.
I don't know. Just blends in. Just blending in.
Well, it is. It's part of the camouflage.
Yeah. This guy, I can't remember his name. It's been a while since I read the book, but he posited that the area where he was living, because he was building a house not far from where he was staying at the time, was like a Bigfoot like walk-through area. Like they would walk right through it, and he started to leave because things started happening around his place. Like there were like handprints, like really large handprints that they would leave in his like car window and stuff like that. Like it was like naturally curious and stuff like that. But he claims at one point, because they would leave, he would leave something on a stump nearby, and like there would be an object left for him. Like it would be gone and replaced with something else. He posited that these things speak Mandarin because he got a word in branches that looked like a Mandarin word, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was something about like hairy man or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Well, what would be really
Chinese?
In Mandarin, yes.
What would actually be really fascinating is if they are just a part of the human population. We don't know when language developed for humans.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if Neanderthals had language. We don't know those things. I would actually say it wouldn't surprise me if we found out that, just think about it in terms of like geology and timelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense to me, at least, that Bigfoot, this is the way I would look at it, at least. And I don't know, maybe we should ask Jeff Meldrum what he thinks. But like, I would think if Bigfoot is a creature, is like a physical creature, an animal like us, then Bigfoot probably evolved either as an offshoot of the human population or as an offshoot of the Homo, like Neanderthals or something, some branch of this tree that we're on. They developed in the area that we would today consider to be Russia or China, and then traveled over on the Alaskan
bridge.
land bridge. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Okay.
And so in that sense, actually, I would say it actually might make a lot of sense that they would speak not modern Mandarin, but one of those common, like, languages are broken up into a couple of distinct kind of like families, right? And so English is super similar to, so like, and there's some kind of weird ones too, like Hungarian and Finnish are actually very similar to each other, although the countries aren't really near each other. And then like, so you basically have like Proto-Chinese, you have Proto-Japanese that kind of developed along with Proto-Korean on, their peninsula and then island. And then you have like, so there are these proto-languages. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the words in one of these early languages, either within Proto-Russian or Chinese or some dialect of Chinese at least, or, from that part of the world, right, where the Alaskan land bridge would have connected, I would not be actually that surprised if we ever do find Bigfoot and they do talk or something or have some kind of communication that, I don't know, some of the words would be similar to a Proto-Mandarin or something.
What?
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised.
What?
Listen, I think it'd be really funny if when we catch Bigfoot, we shave him and underneath it's just a gray alien.
Oh
no.
God, no!
Oh
They're
no!
just-
God, no!
I'm still thinking
Don't
they
they
look
be
like
funny?
Rob Lowe.
Christopher,
No.
that's terrible.
It would be
That'd be really
terrifying.
funny.
Terrifying.
That'd be really funny. Okay, let's go to episode 4. So, episode 3 of the Lowe Files. No.
Episode 4.
4? Episode 4.
Episode 4.
And part 3 of what we're talking about in this series. This is getting very confusing, these numbers.
It's
Episode
really
4.
only 3.5.
Episode 4. Sam, why don't you give us the rundown? What happened in this episode?
Okay, all right. So in this episode, and I think what you gotta do it, take away your preconceived notions, because this was, if you look at this as a serious attempt, basically they're going to Arizona to find extraterrestrial life. They're going to do it in one night.
Mm-hmm.
We've been searching in the modern era since, like, what is it, 47 was Roswell? We've been searching since 47, and they're going to do it in one night. So that's the challenge. That's the goal. And it really, it makes me feel, it's funny, because Rob Lowe says, as they're driving in their beautiful truck, he says, we are trying to get abducted. And I feel kind of disrespected by that, because I feel like I am trying to get abducted. Rob Lowe's not trying to get abducted. Rob Lowe is just there to have a good time. I'm the guy going to the desert in the nighttime, staring up at the stars every day. Not every day, but regularly.
See, now I
think
Rob Lowe should try to be more like Rob Christopherson, who is trying to figure out if he has been abducted. I mean,
I think that's fair too, and we get there. That's the beautiful thing about this episode. All these questions are answered, and
oh my god.
And
you know
but you guys, we are also missing a Lowe. We're down a Lowe.
We are down a low.
We're low a
That
low.
is true. Lowe. What's the
low.
older one? Michael? Is that even one of them?
Matthew. Oh, God,
Matthew.
Poor Matthew. We always forget his name.
It's
Got
just
John Owens. John Owens has been promoted to the front seat of the truck.
wait,
which
no.
is a big move.
That's not this episode. That's next episode.
It's next
no,
episode.
no.
I was gonna
it's
say-
this episode.
I was gonna say, wait,
it
did
the-
they?
oh!
Did,
It's
Oh my
episode
God.
5.
guys,
Oh.
you guys just scared the crap out of me. I was like, did I have a stroke? Did I not realize that one of the Lowe children wasn't there? Who the hell was another kid then?
No, dude.
Good God.
Forgive me.
No.
I'm a low ahead. We're not
Wait.
down a low. We are fully.
There were 2 lows.
We are
No, there were 3
fully
lows.
at low level for this.
If we're missing, listen, if we're missing a Lowe and his loss is felt in all episodes after the underwater base, we're missing Boat Lowe.
We are
Boat
missing Boat
Lowe.
Lowe.
Damn it.
But I
Okay,
feel like
but-
we doubled down with truck low. So forgive me, Sam. Please continue. We have all
Well,
of the lows. All
The
lows are
weird thing
accounted for.
is, I remember them saying, like, Matthew is off studying for an exam. I didn't see episode 5 yet, so I'm wondering if he, came back
What?
at a certain
Maybe.
point. Will Chris, I'm sure, will take the time to rewatch this before we put this episode out and make any corrections that's necessary.
Oh
so,
my goodness! It seems like it seems like I wasn't taking this episode seriously.
You
I'm gonna
definitely
be
were
honest.
I'm sorry, team.
I watched
I'm sorry,
this.
team.
I watched this twice.
Okay.
He was
Then
there
what
both
am I
times,
remembering?
swear.
Oh my god. This is
He was there both times. I swear.
Matthew was there
Okay.
both times.
it's gotta
Alright,
be a
so-
screen memory. That's
And
what
we're
it is.
sure, and we're sure it's Matthew and not Michael. It's not
Sam,
Michael.
have you been abducted,
Huh.
Sam?
Oh man. So that's a good question, and we're gonna get into that. And we are. But first, and this is something that really surprised me and actually made this episode one of my favorite ones beyond everything else that happens, is we actually have the man, the myth, the legend, Travis Walton on the show. Like, Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, one of the greatest UFO abduction
Oh, yeah.
scenarios of all time.
Oh yeah.
He comes on, he tells his story, and I mean, I'm broadly familiar with his case, but watching him tell it, I really hope it had the same effect on some other people as it did on me, where watching him tell it, I was like, wow, he is not kidding. He's not,
No.
he's also not crazy. I mean, if
He's
you
not.
watch him, if you listen to him, he's a very well-composed, educated, intelligent guy for being a lumberjack.
Well, here's
nothing against our lumberjack fans.
No, but I've been reading his book,
Mhm.
which was originally called The Walton Experience, and then it was retitled. But what you get, straight from it's like an 18-page long forward or prologue.
Okay.
I can't remember. he goes through, like, for one thing, he's a really good writer, just in like the vocabulary use and everything like that. He's a smart guy. He goes through like the history of the town that he grew up in, like the history of the surrounding area, and like just so much. So like he's, despite this the lumberjack reputation, he's actually a really, 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 really intelligent man.
Yeah, and it shows.
Yeah.
So one thing with the episode actually that I thought was kind of interesting was they kind of interestingly, I don't know if they meant to, but they kind of juxtaposed him, Travis Travis Walton's experience. I would say is one that's definitely worthy of investigation, even if you are skeptical. I think it's definitely worth at least listening to what he has to say, because he's so he seems to have been so genuinely affected by whatever it was that happened to him and whatever he thinks happened to him. But at the same time, they first talk to a woman who, frankly, I'm not even kidding, like, I am concerned for.
Well,
she should probably see a doctor.
And you know what
the
funny thing is? The funny thing is, her name is Dr. B.
She is a doctor.
I mean,
she doesn't need to talk to a doctor.
Doesn't mean
is she a doctor? Did we check into that?
No.
That was just her name. I don't know.
I took the television edit to Word.
Yeah,
I'm a trusting person.
So the issue, she is one of these. So Arizona is kind of like the. I have been to Arizona and I absolutely loved it. I loved going to Arizona. I thought it was an amazing state. It's beautiful. People are really friendly and nice.
And now here comes the dog. Here comes the dog on Arizona.
But Arizona, nice. No, like Arizona is, for some reason, has become like the collection point for every ex-UFO cult member in the world.
I think that's fair
Where
to say.
like they're kind of the epicenter of the benevolent space brother mythos, right? And so it's like all these people that dropped acid in the 70s and now are like convinced that they're in psychic contact with or have been visited by UFOs, and like every one of them has a different argument for how it's happening or why it's happening or whatever. All of them, though, are 100% certain that the only way to protect yourself and to get your energy back in line is for you to buy one of their shitty crystals, of course.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's like really legitimate,
Yeah.
of course.
But
like, it's silly. And so one of the parts, I don't mean to railroad over you, Marie, because you had a comment here, but I have got to get my rant about Fulgurite out of the way.
Well,
before it tears me
let's
asunder.
say really quick,
Before we go into Fulgurite, I would say, like, so I knew nothing about their speakers, either one of them. So the older gentleman, I was just taken with, because knowing nothing about his backstory and just hearing it there, but just seeing him like show up in a suit.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
And he
Right.
shows
To
up
be
everywhere,
yeah.
everywhere in that suit.
Is very, but the demeanor is very well spoken, and I think, juxtaposing that to the woman, I mean, Rob, I'm kind of curious if the editing that you have sort of an issue with comes into play too, because it could have been, now a lot of the stuff she said was super creaky, don't get me wrong, but she could have been like mid-jest on some of this, she could have been joking on some of this, she could have just been not nearly as flighty as she is. There could have been some editing issues, but if there were not editing issues,
I'm going to remind
I would
you.
say...
I'm going to remind you, this woman has been claimed to have been struck by lightning 11 times.
11
Yeah,
times.
so...
Well, okay, so I will rescind my editing.
And let's...
comment.
Before... Oh, go ahead.
I would say that I think that this is one of my beefs with this show in general, even though I still love Rob Lowe, is that if you want to find a pro and a con side of what you're trying to put out there, you should do it on a more even-handed level than someone who comes across as somewhat legit and someone who is clearly not stable.
Clearly
like that to me
kooky,
is like that's like
Yeah.
almost too much of a skew, and I thought that it was unfair to people that do take this seriously. And it's unfair. It's like, if that's the spirit of what Rob Lowe is really trying to do, which is an earnest evaluation, then he shouldn't be making fun of people, even if this woman is somewhat peculiar. He
Well,
shouldn't be
the thing,
mocking
so
her.
To
the
be
thing that really
fair,
annoyed me too with this, the thing that really, I just want to put this out there.
yeah.
There is no corroborating evidence that she has ever been struck by lightning ever.
Oh,
The
interesting.
this story of the man who's been struck by lightning 11 times is actually a very famous story. It's the story of Roy Cleveland Sullivan, who was a park ranger in Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. He was hit by lightning. I think it was recorded 7 times over his lifetime.
Wow.
Because of his time in the park.
Right.
But like this story of the man who's been struck by lightning multiple times, that is a famous story. So again, this could have all been avoided with a simple Google search for this woman, because if someone gets struck by lightning once and they survive, it becomes a national story.
Yeah.
So the fact that this woman, like, when she was like, I've been struck by lightning 11 times, I was like, what? No, you haven't. I would have heard about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I read HuffPo Weird every day. I would have heard about you getting struck by lightning, ma'am. So, yeah, I find it to be an unfortunate, and it's a part of the whole, it's a part of the whole paranormal world that we don't like to talk about, but there are people interested in these things who are not well. That is just a part of it. And again, I urge anyone, rule out the average possibilities first. That's all I'm saying, you know? But yeah, I found her inclusion in the show very problematic, especially because they made fun of her for most of it.
Yeah, which was, I think, sort of cruel.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You shouldn't have somebody
Right.
on
It was-
just to mock them, no matter
it was
who
cruel.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on top of that though, she is emblematic of this weird thing people have about crystals and rocks and stuff. So she claimed that the reason aliens are coming to Earth is so that they can mine fulgurite, a mineral that is literally, I don't mean to sound like Rob Lowe here. Fulgurite is literally sand that has been heated up really hot by lightning. That is what fulgurite is. So basically, lightning strikes someplace randomly in the desert, and it creates these pillars of fulgurite. And what's happening is the plasma, which is what lightning is so super hot and charged that it's causing these pieces of silica and calcium and magnesium and oxygen that make up normal rock. It's making them fuse together into a pseudo mineral, basically. Now, here's the thing. If they are able to travel across the universe, they are able to create fulgurite in their laboratories, because literally all it is heating up sand kind of hot. So it makes no sense at all for aliens to be coming here to get fulgurite, because they could just make it at home. This is part of a similar reason I have such a trouble with the idea that they're here to take cows for genetic testing. All they would need to do is get one cow ever, and then they could do all the genetic testing they needed. Because that's what we do. We get samples of cells from one individual, Henrietta Lacks, and now she's all over the world. Like, it's comical to me to think that, like, again, it's we kind of touched on this in one of our episodes on the show, where I talk about how a lot of the predictions for UFO ships, or people that claim that they were abducted, they would say, like, yeah, the aliens had these, like, really huge tube TVs, and there was a whirring noise and whatever. And it's like, looking back at it now, you're like, if these people were really abducted, why did the aliens have a steampunk ship?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe
Like,
they were
why-
hipster. They could have
Exactly.
been hipster
And
aliens.
so this is part of one of the arguments that people now put forward to make up for this lack of clarity in technology is, well, the aliens make you see what they want you to see.
Right.
But to me, that's always been a glaring flaw in all these people who claim to have been abducted stories, is they're not able to look ahead. You know what I mean? Like, in the cases where people are like, I didn't recognize anything, that to me rings more true than, like, you know, Woody Derenberger saying he saw the naked Lanuloses through a camera TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's like, it was in color and everything, and it's like, well, okay, sure.
Let
you know
me
what I mean?
ask
Whatever.
you. Let me ask you, just not to get us too far off topic. When it comes to cattle mutilations, okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always thought about in that case, and I'd like to get, just because we're here now, I'd like to get your opinion on it. So I think that one idea behind cattle mutilations, and mine especially, would be because this is something that's been occurring for decades, theoretically, for decades been occurring. Would it make sense that they test a batch of cows back when this whole thing starts, which I think was like the late 60s, early 70s, and then they continue to take samples to see, like, in theory, if they're introducing environmental changes or things like that to see how these different changes have affected the cows? Does that make any sense? Or am I just
Okay.
off? Am I just off base?
If if they have the ability to cross the universe,
Okay.
then in theory they should also have the computational tools to run simulations like that without needing actual
Okay.
samples.
All right.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are so many, just from pure statistics, there are so many ways that we would do those tests without actually having to go to the planet.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
All
Like,
right.
we do tests on exobiology all the time. We try to figure out, well, how could something evolve? How would the food chain look like? Right? Like, that, all of that is done using computers. And so to me, again, it's like we're not, when people say that, like, cattle mutilation is weird, I think probably it has a natural explanation. An uncommon, but a natural explanation. But I find it very telling that we never hear anything that's really out of the ordinary.
Right. All right.
Like non-ballistic motion, that now it's become part of, like, the mythos of, like, whatever normal alien stuff. But that is a telltale sign of something that we never would have considered, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because everything we've known up to that point was ballistic motion.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So non-ballistic motion is an interesting thing. But, like, you have cases where people claim they saw a craft land and it left behind scorch marks. Why do we think aliens are burning fuel to power their ships?
Right.
That's
dig
so
that.
stupid.
I
That's
dig
something
that.
we've only been doing for 100 years because we're too dumb to think of something different. Even if you had a nuclear-powered ship, there would not be scorch marks. So it's like a level of, you know, again, this is like, it's part of the reason why I think, like, a show like the one, or the investigations that I would like to do if we ever had money to go out and do investigations, we would be looking for stuff like this, because it's telltale signs like that tell me this was something someone thought up or whatever. You know what I mean?
And we would set fires.
And we would set fires.
Significant fires.
I love it.
No, we would not. But what I love about what Sam just said was sort of your announcement of it. You're like, so I want to bring this up, and you're like, cattle mutilation, pro or con?
Yeah, that was kind of
I
funny.
was
That
saying,
was
I was
pretty
like,
funny.
Is this
I
a
was
bad
ready.
thing?
I really was ready to argue pro. I was ready, and then I was like, all right.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Think about the
funny.
cases. So I'm sorry. I want to dig into this a little bit more. think about the cases where people claim that, like, surgeries were performed on them, right? Why would they need to perform surgery? We today don't need to perform surgery to look inside of something,
right.
right? We use X-rays and ultrasounds and whatever. And on top of that, too, again, like, we're now starting to think of things like nanotechnology that would potentially remove the need for surgery. Of course, we're always going to need surgery, but again, that's like, we're looking at, imagine if someone, like, 20 years ago had described a UFO with a cell phone.
Right.
That today would look like a home run case, right? We would be like, oh my god, how did they know that kind of technology would exist? You know what I'm saying? And a cell phone's kind of a bad example, I suppose, but there are telltale, like, I think there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of digging just through the data we have at hand that could be done to separate really, really super credible cases, in my opinion, from non-credible ones, or at least ones that I would not put as, like, the top 1% that I would investigate further right away.
But then,
you know what I'm saying?
What do you think, in general, caused that whole string of cattle mutilations? Because during the, like, I can't remember, I did the research on it a while ago, but it seemed like there was a real run on cattle mutilations, especially in certain areas in the Midwest. And it just, I mean, I think some of it, to your point, may be exaggerated natural causes. You read about it, something happens, and something happens to your cattle, and that's how you interpret it. But man, it seemed like that's just a weird, like, in general, I think of that, and I'm like, that's just a weird thing to have happen.
So one argument people always make to me is that, like, these are ranchers that know their animals, that have seen the animals die and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the argument I would make is they might have seen it die, but they've never seen, they don't normally see them decompose.
Do you think?
Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, like, if an animal dies, you don't leave it out there. You have to get rid of it because it can spread disease to your herd.
Yeah, but they found...
That's just good dairy management. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, like, seriously, if an animal looks like it's going to be sick, you kill it and get rid of it.
Right, but if
that's
one
the
of them,
way these things happen.
If one of them gets out and dies, I'm sure that they have seen a decomposed animal or a decomposed cow.
I'm sure they've seen a decomposed cow, but I would argue that it's a lot less average than people would want to admit that it is or think that it is. So I would say they find a decomposed animal. They've never seen the fact that blood in certain organs. Like, we're doing the vampire episode this week, and so
nice.
One really interesting thing is that different organs decay at different rates. So, like, if you were to find a dead animal carcass that's been decaying for like 2 weeks, the organs that would likely be gone are all the organs that people claim have been taken in cattle mutilations. It would be the brain, it would be the eyes, it would be the tongue, and it would be the sexual organs. Those are the things that would be removed first by other animals and just by natural decay. So again, if there was a case of cattle mutilation where the only thing missing was, like, the blood or the muscle tissue, but the skin and everything else was left behind, I'd be like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not cases like that. It's always like, you know, and another part that's always brought up with it is, like, they claim that there are surgical incisions, right? That's just what happens when, again, muscle and skin tissue is sinewy. It has a grain on it. Just like you can break a grain of wood by punching it and it'll break along the grain, that's where it's weakest. The same thing is true of skin and muscle tissue. And so when the gases build up and it pops, it's going to look like a really clean cut because it's just like, that's the way things pop. Like, things don't... I just think there are very sensible, logical explanations for cattle. Like, cattle mutilation to me has never been compelling because
I do think it's
again,
strange.
Like,
I think it's a strange thing to, like, it's a strange thing just to latch on as a phenomenon.
Uh-huh.
Out of anything you're going to pick, out of anything that's going to prove something that is extraterrestrial or that is weirdly supernatural, it just seems like a very
I mean, well, that's the other thing too. What the fuck are they doing with gallons of cow blood? If they're any good at technology, which I would imagine they are, all we need is like milliliters of blood to do full body samples on humans to tell if they're healthy or not.
Maybe they're not very good.
Hear me
Maybe they're
out.
not good phlebotomists.
Hear me out. When did the movie Carrie come out? Rob?
The movie, it's 76.
76, yeah, 76
So,
or 77.
and these cattle mutilations begin, well, I'm going to say around that time. The book's been out for a little bit. They're filming, they're producing. What if the aliens love Carrie and they want to recreate a certain iconic scene, but over and over again, and it becomes
they're doing
part
alien
of their
stage
religion.
plays. Okay.
They're doing.
But they use but it's pig's blood in Carrie.
Okay, but pigs. You're not with it. You're not with it if you're using the
aliens
pigs.
Are scared.
Aliens know better.
Scared of pigs.
The pig blood will melt their fragile skin, but the cow blood is actually nourishing to them. What if that's the whole reason, and we just have no one to blame but Stephen King? no one to blame but Stephen King.
Well,
for
that's
this.
my argument for
Listen,
a lot of stuff.
okay,
is
our
there's no
show.
one- there's
Oh my
no one to
God,
blame but
Sam!
Stephen King.
Why did you open this up?
I want to pose.
sorry.
I want to pose just kind of a question here because like I don't have any data to support this. Okay, but what I want to know is, given the geographical distribution of ranchers and such that have cattle, okay, I want to know which areas are more prone to supposed cattle mutilations, and if it's specifically in certain geographical locations instead of like all over the place. If it was all over the place, I would totally agree that this could, 100% be, like natural stuff. Like I don't have that. I don't have that data.
So this,
That day.
I was gonna say, this is actually a very interesting point. Do you
Yeah.
know where the highest proportion of cattle in the world is?
I have no idea.
It's like
Brazil.
It's like the southern Midwest of the United States. It's like
is it?
Texas and Arizona.
No way.
Right.
It's Brazil, isn't
That's
it?
like beef. Well, maybe Brazil, but Brazil
Brazil.
also has a shitload of cattle mutilations.
Right.
Oh, do
Like,
they? Sorry.
I would, that's the thing. Like, I would actually argue,
think
Rob,
it's
to your
Brazil.
point, that just like with the Bermuda Triangle and some other cases where we don't expect there to be such a statistical, I think statistics is on our side actually with this one. I think that's actually a really good point, and we're gonna have to answer it soon. I think actually I might start looking up cow population data tonight, but
Sweet.
Nice.
I would be very surprised if it wasn't like an average number.
Right.
If we corrected for the average density of cows per like square mile,
Yeah.
that it's not pretty much average across the world. And again, I guarantee it's extremely small. I mean, even if they're saying there are hundreds of cows that have been mutilated, we kill probably
A lot.
at least 100,000 cows a year,
Right.
if not more.
Oh, I'm sure
So
it's
it's
way
like-
more than that.
But
You know what I mean? It's gonna be like I don't know. It's gonna be the same thing as saying like how many people get killed by coconuts every year.
Right.
I bet it'll be
Data-
that level.
that data is tricky as well because you could have some other anomaly
Oh, yeah.
seasonally or just for that year or
Mm-hmm.
something else that
Right.
would drive something
Absolutely.
within
And
that
look,
one zone as
and
well.
on-
It has
and on-
nothing to do with anything else.
and on the other side too, there might be cases where people are assuming the cows have died from natural causes, but it's actually mutilation,
Right.
right? And we don't know how
Yes.
many cows that just go missing aren't like whatever loaded up on a cow planet somewhere where they're like doing weird tests on them. You know what I mean? Like,
That's such a nice idea.
it's one of those. It's one of those. I know. It's
Cow
such,
planet.
Cows are adorable.
They're beautiful
Cows are
animals.
so sweet and they're nice and they're the best. They're like big dogs.
I
love
see cows every day here in Idaho, and I love them. I love them all.
We got
And there's some
we-
just fucker out there just messing with them.
What a
Just
jerk!
mutilating
all right,
them.
guys.
All right,
I
anyways.
want to rein it back
So-
in. I don't know how we
Let's rein
got
it
this
back
far
in.
out.
So
we
I
didn't.
think-
This is
I
crazy.
do think that Rob Lowe is actually going to do one on cattle mutilation, you guys.
Oh, good.
really.
I do think he is, yeah. I
Well,
might
if
have
he
just,
is, then
I
we'll
might have just,
revisit this.
Oh my god. And if he's not, season 2.
Season 2. Oh yeah, like
Do you
there's
think
going to be a
they're gonna
season
get
2.
season two?
Didn't Forrest and Scott say that they were actually going to touch cattle mutilation at some point? I remember that. I
I'm-
want to say it was during the Skinwalker series. I remember them saying they were supposed to.
They're
Dude,
both
I
way
mean,
too squeamish.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I don't know. Maybe they will. We'll have to see. But it's gonna be interesting when one of our shows covers it. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right,
So
guys.
what? Okay.
Moving forward.
So Rob Lowe.
'Kay.
So now they get to this. They basically talk to this woman. It's
Mm-hmm.
not super comfortable. She tells Rob Lowe that he needs to take the fulgurite, which again
Right.
is microwaved rock, and
root
you know,
chakra.
She
Root chakra.
right. He needs to put it on his root chakra,
Mm-hmm.
which he takes to make a penis joke, which is very funny. But again, this poor woman.
Yeah.
I hope she's doing okay. Then
The last big takeaway from her that I wanted to touch on, and I think, and we mentioned it at the beginning of the show, again, there's a lot of problematic things going on here, but at the very last thing that they talk about is that she tells Rob Lowe that he has been abducted regularly since he was 4 years old, which I wanted to point out, if we're in the aliens, this is like the unspoken fear behind books like Communion, and other more of those uncovering the UFO contact cases. And I think it's definitely something worth thinking about and talking about. Maybe not right now, but at some points. This idea that we could all be being abducted and just not remember it.
I was gonna say, I think that's actually part of I think the fear that drives a lot of people that are into this thing is like the fact that we all could have been.
Right.
And actually, it's like, I don't mean to keep plugging our episode on vampires, but it's gonna be a good one. But it's actually very similar to the fear of. It's actually very, very similar to the story of how vampire fear spreads. We all could have been visited in the night and none of us would realize it until, for some reason, we remember having a dream, or what we thought was a dream, where a vampire enters our room, paralyzes us with their vision, and then bites our neck and sucks our energy. Right? It turns out you were having sleep paralysis and you freaked out, and so you woke up feeling sick, or you already were sick. It was a fever dream, whatever. But this again, like, it's part of I have to get this tattooed on me somewhere. Like, myths don't change; they just change, colors, or they change clothing. I'll have to get a better tattoo than that.
That's a terrible tattoo.
Well,
but you know what I mean.
Should be on
you know
your
what I mean,
forehead.
though. Like,
you know
what I mean, though.
Like that plays perfectly in the juxtaposition of talking to Travis Walton, because Travis Walton is not your typical abductee. Travis Walton saw a UFO in a field, got out of the truck that he was in with his coworkers, ran over to the UFO. The UFO hit him with a beam of light that threw him back. The UFO abducted him, and why he thinks the UFO abducted him is not the same reason why people generally think they're abducted, which is probably one of the more brilliant moves of this episode.
I really do think throwing And I wish
Travis
they would have taken
Walton
him out there with them. I wish that they would have engaged.
I know, and like,
more.
and like the
Then what happened
Kardashians,
next?
the Kardashians took him out to Area 51. They took the Kardashians out to Area 51. It was Travis Walton and somebody else. I can't remember, but
Seriously?
yes,
That's beautiful.
I am not
You know
joking.
what?
They went out to
Are
Area
you kidding
51.
me?
I could-
That's a waste of a day with Travis Walton.
It really is.
No, man, that's beautiful.
That's horrible.
That's
I would
beautiful.
spend all day talking to him. I would just sit down and be like, tell me everything. Like, just every detail. Give me everything you have.
I wanna hear from Sam. Why is that beautiful? I love
That's-
the fact that you think that's
I
beautiful.
just-
I think it's.
the
I think I could have died without ever knowing that fact and still been.
I think that we have. It's beautiful because, oh God, it symbolizes. Okay, I'm gonna change my voice to this. It's beautiful because it symbolizes the sort of osmosis and equilibrium. I'm just gonna say all these sciencey words to give Chris a frickin' coronary.
Coronary.
New Age Sam is
entropy.
bringing science into it.
The entropy of the situation. I think it's neat because basically the people who watch the Kardashian show are not always Kardashian, not Cardassian. It's not Star Trek. Are not always the people who would necessarily care to learn about Travis Walton or Area 51
Or really anything else.
or anything else at all. I've never seen it, but it does create a good tie-in to the next part because are we all good to move forward?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I feel fine.
Do you feel fine? You don't sound like you
Chris,
feel
you
fine.
seem the
I'm-
most unfine at any time that we've recorded this episode. I'm just saying.
It's
What
beautiful.
I like about Sam is that Sam can find beauty even in the darkest of darknesses.
Yay!
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
darkest.
That's what I'm going for here.
even at humanity's lowest, Sam's like,
Yeah.
there's beauty here.
There is.
There's
Like a
beauty.
rose from the concrete.
Yes.
Thanks, Tupac.
He
All right.
Wonderful.
So
Okay.
this ties into the next event. Okay, they're going to the desert because it's time. It's time for the main event.
Yes.
They get out of the car. This is the tie-in. John Owen is wearing a specific kind of shoe that is not great for the desert. Those shoes, unless I am mistaken, which is somebody who spends a lot of time on the Kanye West subreddit, I don't think I am.
You think they're his?
They're Yeezys. I'm pretty sure John Owen is wearing Yeezys to the Alien event.
I did not even get that.
That's because you're not looking at it with the I don't know what kind of mind this is, but it is the mind. So this is great because that way, if they get abducted, just in case, we have a natural tie-in to share Kanye West with the visitors from outer space, which I think will really help us in our species development. But the big problem comes in. He's two words. One
He just sort of shows up.
stroke in my head, and it is Shaman John. Shaman John has returned. He's back, baby, and I hate him more than ever.
And he's worse.
So
he's worse.
Since he's a lot worse. Since
he's
last
a lot
episode,
worse.
Since last episode, we did a little bit of digging, dear listeners. Shaman John he has a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, which good on him, good on you, Shaman John.
Good job.
He decided after working in the world of electrical engineering for a couple years, probably like 10 years or something, he decided that he wanted to. He had on his website he listed as a spiritual reawakening or something like that, and of course his website's background is like Machu Picchu,
right?
And all these spiritual kind of places, whatever. And so he, as far as I can tell, attended a seminar series or like a I don't know, like college for shamans. We were joking that he went to shaman college. He did kind of go to shaman college, also taught by someone with dubious credentials,
I'm sure.
And now he claims that he's a full-fledged shaman.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he can share with you spiritual awakening and healing for an exorbitant price.
For $300.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Wow.
So,
Seriously? Wait, stop. Just let's stop everything for a minute there. $300 an hour?
Yeah, that was the value that we saw for group retreats and stuff.
Damn, yo.
Do you believe that?
I haven't even.
Dude, spiritual awakening is good money.
I have an even better story for you. It's quick. It's great though. Okay, my dad was he was a judge for 20 years in my hometown. Okay, I was sitting in court one day and he was hearing this case between this one guy was suing a lawyer over the closing costs of a house. The guy that was suing the lawyer passed the bar exam. He was a really smart guy. He gave up the life of being a lawyer for a paper route. No joke.
Interesting. Interesting.
No, that's okay. You know what?
Yeah.
I got props to that.
So
right?
There's a more positive example.
I like that.
I was going to say, isn't all of our goals to give up our day jobs to become podcasters?
I mean, that's fair.
I mean, that's a pretty cool, you're not going to go into law, you're not going to do any of this, you're going to, you're just going to deliver papers.
You're going to earn $50 a week delivering them papers.
Yeah, it's a shoeing profit. It's not you're not going to get rich.
Yeah, I mean,
but
Shaman
John, I don't know.
Shaman John,
That's
he's a
not the
shyster. The guy out there slinging papers, he's more honest than Shaman John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just bothers, again, it's part of this whole, monetization and bastardization of legitimate spiritual experience by these people that are trying to sell you rocks and crystals to take in your bad chi and whatever. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And anyways, Shaman John shows up with some drums.
Oh yeah.
And they just do a really. They get oiled up. Why did they have to get oiled up?
So that the spirits could see them. Okay, here's the thing.
I don't understand any of this. Yeah, why is
Shaman?
This is this what you do? Is this what you're supposed to do? It doesn't. Again, it's like Bigfoot.
Shaman.
What you're supposed to do.
What's interesting here about Shaman John is that some of the things that he did, apart from being completely and totally inappropriate for any white person to do, full stop. Some of the things that he did could be interpreted to be theoretically kind of correct actions in a different scenario. If you are not trying to communicate with aliens, but instead trying to form a bridge between this world and the spirit world, that's where you get things like anointing oils, holy oils. You essentially are trying to get the spirits to see you or recognize you in some way. The big problem is that we're not looking for spirits, we're looking for aliens. And I think that's where we lose the plot of this episode so hard. Like, it is gone. Because,
also, they use Chris's favorite term ever, Space Brothers.
Space Brothers.
Oh, God.
Of course.
Space Brothers.
Of course, Shaman John thinks the aliens are here to help us and is very excited to help usher in this new era. As if he's missed the last 30 years of the abduction experiences and all of that.
Like, has there ever been a point where one culture that's more technologically advanced meets another culture that's less technologically advanced, and it's gone well
Nope.
for
Never.
the less technologically advanced one? Never, ever, right? Why do people assume that the aliens are coming to help us as opposed to, like, I don't know, turning us into slaves like we fucking did? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand.
I
So
think
you're saying that Shaman John does not have a nuanced grip on history or anything else.
you
I
don't
think
say.
Shaman John.
He can swing a mean drum.
I think
He
Shaman
can
John probably
swing a
overpaid
drum.
for those drums.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
guaranteed.
I can almost guarantee he overpaid for those drums. So, I've actually never understood the, like, there was a guy, I remember, maybe Rob, you would know more about this, or you remember the name or the thing that goes with it or whatever, but I remember there was like a priest or something, like a healer or whatever, some kind of spiritual person who claimed that he could get UFOs to communicate with him by, like, he would like go out in the desert with a bunch of people and, like, call to them, and then they would flash him with lights or whatever. Do you remember any? Have you guys ever had any kind of, like, read about that?
I've
or whatever?
heard of that. There was a
Yeah,
documentary
I-
on Netflix, but I didn't catch it.
No.
It's
So
called, like,
that-
the Curse of the Man Who Sees UFOs or something, I think.
Something like that. Like, this guy. So this guy basically claimed that he could, like, telepathically communicate with UFOs to make them, like, flash, whatever lights to be, because they told him, of course, that you're the most special person and we need you to tell everyone about us, because that's the way it
Wait,
goes.
is this
I guess.
in the United States?
I think.
I believe so.
Are you sure he wasn't looking for Bigfoot?
It might not be though. He might have. He
because
might have been in South America.
The only one that I could think of that could actually do that could get, like, even permission to take, like, even photographs, was Billy Meyer. That's, like, the only one that comes to mind. I can't
Billy
think of
Meyer.
anybody.
Where did he?
But yeah, that's the thing. Billy Meyer's from, like, somewhere in Europe, and, like, he was totally bogus.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't in Europe. It was either
No, it was
South
definitely,
Central
like, in
or North
Arizona or
America.
something.
Yeah.
It was definitely, like, somewhere desert-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's kind of it's again, like, kind of a weird thing, and it's just like a weird thing too to have done. Like, I don't know how this got past the editors. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of like, it seems like the Lowe Files keeps edging really close towards like offensive territory.
Oh, yeah. I think this was
And, like,
entirely offensive.
I don't get, like, I don't understand how. I don't know. I don't
It's
understand
because-
how, like, it keeps getting past the people who are, like, editing this damn show.
The
Well,
problem
I
is
just-
problem is that this is the, like, oh god, I'm gonna sound like Alex Jones here. This is the Hollywood elite. Okay, that's the end of the Alex Jones. This is how they view spirituality, is through charlatans like this. And charlatans say they are able to look at, like, sacred things that have real weight, whether or not you believe in spiritual, like, the spirit world at all, anything like that. These sacred ceremonies are performed and they have a measurable effect, whether it's because of a spiritual thing or simply because of the entire culture buying into it, believing it, and acting from there. So they are able to see and look at these things and say, that makes a difference. Even though this is not for me at all, I am going to take that. And that's where I mentioned it in the first episode, the term of like the plastic shaman comes in, which is somebody who just capitalizes. And because these people have more than $300 an hour to throw at Shaman John, and you also have like, now I'm going to bring out my Karl Marx, you also have this void that comes from capitalism and just obtaining so much money. They're looking for something more. We all are. But the difference is that they have enough money to them that it doesn't matter if they get scammed by charlatans. It's worth it just for the journey for them.
Well, and I mean, think about like Scientology too. I mean,
I was
Scientology
just going to say that, Maria.
Scientology's big base is Los Angeles, but I mean, too, it's based on LA is largely based on a falsehood, right? How you look, how young you are, and how that drives in that industry. And it's like, I think when that happens, you are at a deficit for any kind of spiritual anything, and you will take. If you've got the money,
anything you can get,
you'll backfill as fast as you can to see if you can get some sort of grounding.
Yeah,
but I think that there's no. It's not a coincidence that Scientology got sort of its roots, and that's where it's heyday
in big money town. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. I wonder with the. So I've always felt just from reading and whatever, and like kind of knowing the history of learning about the history of UFO lore and how it's changed over time and whatever, and the things that have stayed consistent and, still make a believer out of me at least. I always wonder about what damage UFO cults did to the UFO phenomena. You know what I mean? Because, like, it's really, I actually think, very quite fascinating. Like, we still look at individuals like, say, Astonishing Legends did a phenomenal story on Angelo. What was his name?
Orfeo Angelucci.
Orfeo
Angelucci. And to me, Orfeo's story has always rang as like one of those quintessential UFO cult stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he eventually joined a UFO cult and helped found one. And you know what I mean? Like, I find it very fascinating that a lot of that stuff is now part of, like you were saying, the plastic shaman phenomena. Like, it really has become quite mixed in with it. And then, I think, Marie, you've hit on something really interesting there, which is, it's not really a far jump from, I mean, Scientology is a UFO cult.
Yeah.
So whatever.
It's a really well-funded
But, like,
one.
It's, like, not a huge jump between this idea of, like, you can buy access to spirituality that other people have to gain or be born with the ability to access, if you believe any of this at all, to steal Forrest's phrase. So I think it's like,
or the big what was it, the big wave of Kabbalah that hit.
Exactly
100%.
I mean, well, the thing that's really fascinating too is, so the United States, again, part of our whole thesis, or my whole thesis on this stuff, it doesn't change. It doesn't change in kind. It just changes in form. The United States is a country that has always had spiritual revivals every couple of hundred of years.
Yeah.
And so there was the Shakers, and then there were, the Shakers, then there were the spiritualist movement in the United States in like the 1850s, 1860s, the years after and right before the Civil War. And then we had the 1920s, almost like a nihilistic spirituality kind of become in vogue. And then the 50s with the UFO, the UFO craze and the spirituality that came out of that, and the appearance and emergence of really powerful, dangerous cults in the 60s and 70s. And so in this, I almost view and so one argument that's always posited is that the fact that they just appear as like upswells of spirituality is just kind of a mistake of the way that history is written. The argument is that this vein of like democratized spirituality, where in America we think everyone has an opinion and everyone's opinion is valid, and like these things that spring from democracy. That's kind of international character. It also plays into the same realm of spirituality where everyone thinks they can have direct access to the spiritual and the powerful. And so we think, well, why should we follow a church with long traditions when there's a guy down the block who claims he can cure my cancer with nanoparticle silver? You know what I mean? Like, and so the argument is that while there are periods where our political and economic problems make it so that these spiritual movements gain more footing in like the popular realm, this idea of a democratized spirituality has always been out there. And so, yeah, this whole, like, Shaman John is such an interesting, like, he maybe is the most interesting character on this show.
I think the truck.
I guess.
The truck.
The truck
I
is
don't
the
know,
most.
man.
Maybe if the truck was like had a Knight Rider aspect where it talked to you too, that would have been
right. That would be good. I don't know.
I hope you didn't just spoil season 2.
I probably did. You know.
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen the entirety of the season yet. No.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's everyone's takeaways here? We've kind of been we did 3 episodes. We did the underwater base. We did the Bigfoot, and then we did the desert drum circle episode. What do you guys final thoughts? Let's go, Rob. Final thoughts on those 3 episodes.
I consider these 3 episodes to be the low point, of the Lowe Files. It, like, for one, you take a really great first episode and then you cut it in half for 3 episodes, and they're edited in such a way where you're getting so little of everything that the, like, because really good, like, and it's obviously not a scripted show, but a really good scripted show can edit their show in such a way that makes you feel like you've been watching it for an hour instead of a half hour. The one show that really comes to mind, and it's because they had multiple plot lines going on every single episode, was Scrubs. Every time I watched Scrubs, I always felt like it was an hour-long episode. But these were, for one, the underwater base. That thing has been disproven. It was disproven 3 years ago. I don't even know why we're still talking about it. I'm kind of angry that I'm talking about it right now. The Bigfoot one, I kind of felt it was disrespectful to the Hoopa people because to go to the Hoopa reservation and to be allowed to drive on there at night, because you have to get permission. You drive out there, you yell like a bunch of maniacs, and you still think that you can hunt Bigfoot. No, you can't do that. You even had to invent a term for this. Squatchin'. Okay, you took Bigfoot's name and you made it a verb. No, we don't do that. So that's terrible. The alien abduction one.
Squatching's not a thing.
No, it's not a thing. Get it out of your vocabulary. Nobody needs it. It's a bad word.
I have a hat hanging on my wall
right
now.
I'm
that
giving you a
begs
pass.
to differ with you.
I'm gonna give you a pass, Sam. I'm giving you a pass.
Right.
You're the only one.
All right.
You're my brother.
What if we start?
I'll
What
let
if it's
that go.
ironic? What if we use it in a meta-ironic sense?
What if we start using it like a replacer, like Smurf? We say like, oh, you should have seen what I just squatched out of my squatch.
Because that's literally just Rick and Morty, is what you're doing right now.
Oh, right, squatch.
They say squatch. So
okay.
I'm pretty
So
sure that's
close.
trademarked.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
Squatch me.
Okay, so we're at the alien abduction.
Thank you,
We're at
Marie.
the alien abduction, and while most of what happened in that episode is hokey crap, yes, I'm not a fan of taking a bunch of glow sticks and putting them in the desert and assuming that can summon aliens. I'm not a fan of taking off your shirt and oiling yourself up and assuming that's what aliens want. But you gave me Travis Walton, and I appreciate that. So that's the only thing that I have enjoyed from these 3 episodes. The rest is garbage. I still love you, Rob Lowe, and I'm still going to watch, but I'm angry.
I think that's fair. That's fair to say.
Damn. All right, Marie.
So I feel like I'm in the same place I was like episode 1. I still don't think, in fact, if anything, I'm more weight to the fact that I don't think that like he's very serious Rob Lowe is very serious about any of this in any regards, and it's sort of like, again, it's kind of gone from wink wink, nudge nudge to almost open ridicule, which to me it's like you shouldn't do that. Like, I love the part with him and the kids, and that to me is sort of what they should have been anchoring it more with, instead of just sort of being a dick, right? There's no need for that. Like, there's no that just is like, it belittles the whole reason that you love it. Like, if he loves this so much and he's so into it, you would almost sense that there would be more of a natural appreciation of it, which I am still missing. It could also be I'm still a little bit bitter. I still don't think I get access to his tweets, but whatever.
Yeah, we need to keep tabs
He's got
on
a lot
that.
of he's got a lot of explaining to do.
He does.
Now, you know, for me, yeah, this isn't
Truly, it's happening. Sam?
Okay. I have decided I have decided that the best way in general to live my life is a complete and total ego death. And I am applying that to this show. I am saying I am choosing not to say Rob Lowe, you idiot, Shaman John, you idiot, but instead saying yes more. Now the exception is the Alien Base episode. That was complete crap. That hurt me to see because I was so excited. But when it comes to the Bigfoot-ish episode, which I do have issues with, I do think that Rob's point of not consulting the Hoopa people and instead consulting Matt Moneymaker is like the biggest snub of the decade, if not forever in mankind history. But so be it. I want to focus on
quite a snub.
It is
Quite a snub.
The alien abduction episode was my favorite out of these. The first two, the first one, I'd never want to experience anything like that again. Sasquatch, I can deal with. The alien abduction episode, I know I said a lot of things about what people should and shouldn't do and how they were completely and totally disrespectful. But that episode, when looking through it, of a man and his children and some charlatan having a good time, it made me happy. Like, I was sitting there, apart from when they thought that they had to trap aliens with fulgurite and set up snares, I enjoyed that thoroughly. And I was sitting here laughing, and I was saying, Rob, come on, man. Like, aliens don't need glow sticks to find you. You're bastardizing entire sacred religious ceremonies. But you could just see how happy everyone was there. And that made me happy. And in my little room in Idaho, I felt some joy. I felt some hope. And
You know what? I feel
you know,
some joy, but Sam feels some joy.
Yeah.
Good.
Interesting.
Good.
Interesting.
That's redeeming in its own self, because I will tell you,
Yeah.
if the aliens need to find you, all they need to do is activate the implant. That's it. Period.
Exactly. 100%.
I find it interesting that we're kind of all going through the 5 stages of grief with this show. We
It's only
started with
4 in.
denial.
It's only 4
We
in.
started with denial. The boat episode was anger.
Uh-huh.
Then Bigfoot, it's like bargaining. We're like, well, at least they went to the right forest. This alien one was just depression, and so I'm hoping we'll get some acceptance coming along soon here. I just find it I think what the Lowe Files has shown me so far is that I would really enjoy a show about Rob Lowe and his kids just traveling the world.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
seeing stuff. Like, that's the show I want to see, not to have to tap on all this other crap that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not being taken seriously, and that's fine. It's not really a serious show, I suppose. But, I think,
if you had taken this show and put it on the Travel Channel, I would be
Yes.
so down
Oh, yeah.
right now. So down
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah.
right now, it feels like A&E is trying to relive its glory days when they had shows like Paranormal State on their network. And
Yeah, and I mean, listen, A&E, if you're listening to this podcast and you need a grope,
A grope.
Jesus Christ.
Okay,
you
dude.
totally love that.
It's 2017, Chris. That's not appropriate, nor is it okay.
You don't know.
Gosh.
Maybe they do need a grope. We didn't hear back from A&E yet on that. Our lawyers.
Well,
we did hear
A&E
from their lawyers.
A&E, now I'm embarrassed. But
You want to come over for a drink, A&E?
if you need a group of paranormal investigators, you know who to call.
We're your boys and women. That's who we are.
I'll be the Bobo of your show right now.
Ooh. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of The Lowdown. We hope that you've enjoyed it. I am Chris Cogswell, and my co-host will introduce themselves as well.
I'm Marie Mayhew.
I'm going to let Rob go first.
I'm Rob Christofferson, and I'm thoroughly angry.
I'm Sam Fredrickson, and I'm riding the wave and enjoying the journey.
Mm-hmm. He is.
Wow. Wonderful.
Peace be unto
All
you,
right,
my space brothers.
Space
Brothers and sisters.
Yes.
We'll be back soon. We have to watch the other episodes that are coming out. We're on episode 5 now.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many episodes are there?
I
I
don't
think
know.
there's like 10 to
7 or
12.
8, maybe 6,
We-
7
Oh
or
my
8.
god.
We may be missing
Oh,
a
we
load
have so
soon.
many left to go.
You guys have
Well,
to
lucky you listeners. We'll see you next time on The Lowdown.
Oh, yeah.